Premier League primetime on tape. Jose, Cyrus, and Andre. And you know that Dave, I don't play. In the field, they can talk about it all day. Look, and we moving up. You can try all you want, can't move like us. When it all comes down, they choosing us. And I do gotta say, we don't give a fuck. Premier League primetime, and it's only that. Speak only facts. Say what I want, can't hold me back. Can't hold me back. Premier League primetime, better yet, it's my time. You stay on the sideline. Say what I want, can't hold me back. Premier League primetime.
Hello and welcome back to Premier League Primetime, Season 2, Episode 8. And you're probably thinking, where is Sirius? Well, you can ask Sirius that why on earth he decided to let us know last minute he wasn't going to be making an appearance. But don't worry, I did bring it back for the second time. I guess who I have heard nothing but, when am I going to be back on the podcast? When am I going to be back on the show? I need to be back on Premier League Primetime. And I said, well, here's your chance. And to introduce him, he's back again, Mr. Ben Arias. How are you doing, my friend?
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a great opportunity to prove myself again to Lord Davis.
And of course, we are back with the other members of the Fab Four. Absolutely superb too. Oh God, Andre and Jose. Do you even ask? How are you doing? Why do I do this to myself? Why do I even ask? Just the typical don't ever respond to Dave if he asks how are you doing. But anyways, let's get right into the sides and the Premier League sides. They finally play more games, so we can go back and look at the games that they've played at last. It's not like on average 2 games per side and so on and so forth. But we're going to go right into Arsenal. And Ben, we're going to start with you. Of course, drawing 0-0 with Burnley, beating Wolves by a score of 1-0. That Chelsea game was toned. Beating Brentford by 2-1. And right at the death in the last game against Wolves, Alexander Lacazette clinching another win for Arsenal over Wolves. Scores for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta and players who have stood out to you, and whether it's a negative way, a positive way.
I gotta say Lacazette definitely proved us the skeptics, quite a lot of them, wrong, that he really still has the stuff to perform at the top level. That was a beautiful layoff, and then he picked the ball up again, and then it was sort of a deflection, but it still went in, and it was a beautiful goal. And he definitely stood out to me. And Arsenal haven't had the smoothest roller coaster of rides, but they're definitely picking up speed again, I think.
Definitely, I agree with that. What score would you give Arsenal and the manager, Mikel Arteta, for this run of games on a score from 0 to 10?
Probably 7.5, more or less. I think so.
Fair enough.
They've done fair.
Fair enough. And through this run of games, right? Other than Alexander Lacazette, who you already mentioned, are there any other players, whether it's in a good way, whether they're in like a rich vein of form, or if it's on the negative aspect where they've just been dreadful and they've been horrendous over these past few games? Have there been any players that have stood out to you other than Alexander Lacazette?
Well, to be honest, I think that some people were skeptical about what Arsenal would look like after Aubameyang left for Barca, but I think the attack of Arsenal's really sort of came into their own and a different dynamic away from him. And you see Lacazette as the main role, but then you also have Saka as well, and other players really creating a real threatening attack that, for me personally, seems very dangerous.
100%, definitely. Let's move right into Aston Villa, of course, Jose. And let's take a look at Aston Villa. Of course, they drew 2-2 to a certain side who let a certain former Liverpool hobbit in Philip Coutinho come off the bench and do what was written in the stars and level the game at 2-2. Going away to Everton and winning. Luca Digne actually with the assist for that goal. I think it was Tyrone Mings who scored the header, or wait, no, I think it was Emmy Wendy actually. Playing at home against Leeds, drawing 3-3, losing to Newcastle by a goal to nil, losing to Watford by a goal to nil, and ending off that run of games by beating Brighton away from home by a score of 2-0. Scores for Aston Villa and Steven Gerrard, and players who stood out to negative and positive.
Yeah, I'd probably go with like a 6 out of 10. I think it's been pretty average. I think it's been really up and down. They've got some impressive results and some not so impressive results. I think that if I had to pick out some players who have been noteworthy, I'd definitely say Coutinho, and then I would also say Matty Cash. I think they both contributed to at least 2 results. I think that they wouldn't have had without those 2 players.
100%. And Matty Cash, for me, he stood out tremendously. Honestly, I really like the look of Matty Cash. I think he could be a quality player in the future. Next, into Brentford, and Andre, over to you. Looking at this run of games that they've had, a 4-1 loss against Southampton, a 3-0 loss against Liverpool, no shame in that. A 3-1 loss against Manchester United, which in the first half they probably should have scored 3 or 4 due to our world-class defense. Losing at home to Wolves by 2-1, losing 2-0 to Man City away from home, drawing with Crystal Palace, losing to Arsenal away, and losing to Newcastle by 2-0 at home. Scores for Brentford and Thomas Frank, and players that have stood out to negative and positive.
Yeah, not fun times for Brentford. I think they're winless in their last 6. I'm not sure how many games you just covered there, but yeah, last 8. Holy crap. Yeah, look, I think they're this is one of the most interesting relegation battles we've ever had in the league right now, because even Brentford, who are they're a few points ahead of the drop, but I'd still say they're in there, with Burnley playing so well, Everton being in the relegation battle too. I mean, we have a relegation battle with maybe 6 teams in there, maybe 7. So I think Brentford are in there. I think they'll survive the drop, but yeah, that is not fun times. I think offensively is probably where they're weak the most. I think of Brentford as a team that's playing generally exciting football, with what they're pressing and the way their players are moving, but they're just not nicking the goals in. I think that's where they could improve, because I think defensively you're going to lock up as much as you can, but with the quality in this league, then teams are going to manage to get goals past you. I think Brentford, it's just offensively is where they need to improve the most. I'd probably give them maybe a 4 out of 10 for their last few games.
100%. Any players that have stood out? It could be a negative on a negative spectrum as well. In fact, that's probably more ideal. Because I've met a whole lot of positives for Brentford.
I've seen rotation in their team from the last few games. I need to look at lineups. I think offensively, I think creatively is where they need to improve, whether that's through the wing backs or through their new signing Erickson once he's getting in the groove of playing in the league again.
And that actually leads into my next question on Christian Erickson. And just from a universal point of view, I mean, how good is it to see this man back in football? I mean, it was just amazing to see him come back off the bench.
Yeah, he finally got a few steps on the grass, which is really good to see. I think he's a player with the whole world is in support of that guy right now.
Definitely 100%. And on Christian Erickson, how do you think he's going to fit into this Brentford side going forward? And what do you think he could specifically bring to Brentford and maybe some of the players alongside him? Do you think, looking at Thomas Frank's 3-4-1-2, he could play in the pivot, or that 3-5-2, similar to what he came from under Conte when he was at Inter last season? Do you think that he'll be stuck in a 10, or do you think that he'll be stuck in a pivot because they have Norgard from behind? Where do you think he'll be placed?
Yeah, exactly. You have Norgard in behind, which means I think Erickson is going to play in that 10. I think he's going to be a free roam player, and I'm hoping with Erickson's quality and delivery, I'm hoping he can send some great crosses to Ivan Toney, because that guy is great in the air. If those two can form a quality connection for Brentford, that would be just awesome to see, because you're seeing a quality partnership helping them potentially survive. That would be a sick exciting. Would be watching Erickson and Ivan Toney connect. That could be a cool
100%. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people would definitely be excited to see. Next, Ben, back to you, and we have Brighton. Brighton drawing at home to Crystal Palace, then drawing at home to Chelsea, and again away at Leicester. We beating Watford on the road by 2-0, losing away to Manchester United by 2-0, losing at home to Burnley by 3-0. That's pretty remarkable.
I know.
And losing at home last week to Aston Villa by a score of 2-0. Scores for Brighton and Graham Potter, and players who stood out to you, whether it's in a positive or negative way, in regards to over these past in this run of games.
Yeah, Brentford has been really inconsistent, and
Brighton.
Brighton has been a very inconsistent team, and we're seeing a drop recently in the performances, and especially with the game against Burnley, I think their performance was dreadful. And I'd say the player that stood out to me the most in terms of like a terrible game was Cucurella, to be honest.
That's a player we've been praising for so much on this show. I mean, that's serious. Every time we're on here, he's always saying, Cucurella.
Yeah, no, he had a terrible game against Burnley. He just out of position. The first goal, he fouled the guy, and then the Burnley guy played a through ball, and then they just crossed it in and scored. And then the second goal, him and the center back were marking the same guy, and they scored again. And then the third goal, he just did lazy defending against Aaron Lennon, and he just dribbled past him and scored again. It was just a terrible performance, I think.
100%.
And I think that just Brighton they just seemed disorganized, to be honest, against that that game.
Definitely. And their luck really has started to, I guess you could say, run out. Of course, they're draw FC Brighton. They've drawn so many games, and their only win in this stretch of 7 games has been beating Watford away from home, and that's nothing to really be super proud of, to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
What would you give? Before I get on to that, it's some of the defending, as you mentioned. You said it's spot on, and I don't know what's worse. First year's defending or Brighton's. It's both shambolic, but scores for Brighton and Graham Potter, and any other players that have stood out to you in this run of games.
Probably 3.5, something around there. I just don't think they're very convincing, and I think it starts with, and I think the organization starts with the manager, and that comes from tactics, and he needs to implement better organization throughout his team.
It's been a man we praised all year, and he's a great manager, Graham Potter, but he hasn't been looking so great in this run of games. I think Brighton will find themselves again. They're just in a bad run of form, to be honest with you. Next, of course, into Burnley, and I will save Jose from being a broken record. In regards to Burnley, if we look at Burnley, away at Arsenal, drawing 0-0, with Watford, 1-1 with Manchester United, losing by 0-0 against Liverpool, nothing to be ashamed of. Beating Brighton, as you just mentioned, by 3-0. Winning against a certain world-class North London side by a score of 1-0, and drawing Crystal Palace away from home by a score of 1-1. Only one loss for Burnley in this run of 7 games. Scores for Burnley and Sean Dyche, Andre.
Yeah, Burnley are back. They're shoving everybody to death. Every team they play comes out with injuries of some sort. Dyche's men are back. I think they're looking like the Premier League side that they were from the past few seasons. they are definitely just they're fine. They're picking up points.
They'll
Wout
avoid
Weghorst.
relegation. They should avoid relegation.
Oh yeah, I think they will. I think they're gonna get out of that zone and with their a lot of matches to play. I don't think they're gonna let up. I think Wout Weghorst is just the total talisman for that team now.
Definitely, he's been fantastic since coming in.
He's been great. He's better than he's probably going to be a better signing than Wood was for Burnley. Wout Weghorst will be probably a bigger legend for Burnley than Chris Wood was.
100%.
He's pressing, he's creating. Yeah, Wout Weghorst has uplifted this Burnley offense.
100%. And what would you give for Burnley and Sean Dyche?
Yeah, I think they've looked one of the best sides on form. I think given the turnaround that they've had from the last time we talked about this team until now, I think you'd probably have to give them like an 8 or 9. This is
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Burnley. This is Burnley. This is Burnley.
I 100% agree with that. Next, of course, we're right into Andre's favorite team, Chelsea. But no, Jose, we're over to you to save Andre. I know Andre is a little sad that he doesn't get to talk about his love and his eternal love for his favorite manager, Thomas Tuchel. And before we actually get into the games, a little cheeky question for Andre. What's a very special your special managerial rating for Thomas Tuchel and the Tuchel masterclass he is performed in this run of games, which losing to Man City by 1-0, a masterclass against Brighton when they drew 1-1, and an absolutely fantastic performance against certain North London side by winning by 2-0. The game against Arsenal got postponed, beating Palace by 1-0 and away from home, and of course the game against Leicester got postponed. Jose, before we go to you, Andre, a special manager rating for your favorite Thomas Tuchel?
Yeah, I'd probably give him like a 7 out of like 100. That's probably what I'd give him. Yeah, good job, Tuchel.
7 out of 100. Well, Jose, over to you. Scores for Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel, and players that have stood out to you, positive or negative.
Yeah, I'd probably give him a 6 out of 10. I think it's where Chelsea are still looking a little shaky ever since the United game, the Sancho goal. I think that they've looked a little shaky, and it's kind of continued here. I think the Man City loss, it doesn't look that bad. It's just 1-0, but like you look at before, Tuchel has had I think a perfect record against Man City and against Pep Guardiola before that, and he finally lost his first game, and it comes during a time when they've looked shaky. They haven't looked like the super strong defensive team that they have in previous months. I think if I'm gonna point out some players, I'd go Ziyech. He's looked pretty good.
Yeah, he's been in good form.
I think he's been their best attacker on form. And then other than that, Havertz had looked all right. Yeah, I'd probably just leave it there. Those are the 2 players I'd point out.
I mean, but one thing I think it's important to point out, as I always say, positive and such for negative. We always point out the positive. I think we also got to point out the negative. So 2 players that have just been, one of them's just been shocking all season, and I'm tired of seeing comparisons or seeing the comparisons him to Jadon Sancho. It just like my brain just can't function properly when I hear Romelu Lukaku being compared to Jadon Sancho. It hurts my head to hear it. But one player who you really have to say has been dreadful in this run of games, Mason Mount.
Oh yeah, I agree with that statement.
What was the game where he had that ridiculous miss?
But the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool.
Yeah, it was Liverpool.
Yeah,
he hit the post, I think, right?
He missed like 3 very simple chances, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no,
there were a few. Yeah, he's been looking really bad recently.
Definitely. And lastly, before we move on to Crystal Palace, of course, as we all know, the whole situation in Russia and Ukraine, which on behalf of Premier League Prime, our thoughts and prayers go to all those in Ukraine, those suffering, those hurt from whatever it is. Our thoughts go out to those people and so on. And with the whole situation, Roman Abramovich has decided to openly sell Chelsea Fabrizio Romano confirmed it that he's going to sell Chelsea Football Club and that he's open to offers. I just want to hear all three of your thoughts on this. Where do you think Chelsea go from here? Who do you think could potentially buy Chelsea?
Well, I mean, I've heard a few fans saying like it's the end of an era and all that stuff. I don't think it's really gonna affect them that much. I think that whoever buys them is gonna have the same, if not more, money than Roman Abramovich did. So I think that they're gonna be totally fine. It's not gonna be that big of a difference, to be quite honest.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think Chelsea I think the way their transfer market strategy is, I think, very strong. I think they have some of the best negotiators, and they're great at getting players in the door and out the door too. I mean, how many loanees do they have right now? I think it's a really just well-run operation when it comes to management of the players, of their players. So I don't know how big of a part Abramovich had, but we do look at a signing like Lukaku, and you say, okay, that's an 100 million signing who's been somewhat of a flop. Havertz, who's a lot of money, and he obviously won for the future, but he wasn't an impact player. I think if Chelsea appoint someone who's rich and is going to back them as much as Abramovich did, then we won't see a problem. But if you get some other billionaire who is stingier and is going to affect that strategy, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they're going to change based on the ownership, because teams seem to really change up based on the ownership. Like, I think it seems understated how much owners, I guess, have when it comes to their club, like the control they have. So this is actually just going to be interesting just to see how Chelsea are going to change based on this change of ownership, an era that has spanned like over a decade now with Abramovich. It's
100%. Yeah, I agree with it. I agree with that. Definitely. Next, Ben, back to you. We shift over to Crystal Palace. Let's take a look at their run of games. Drawing against Brighton away from home, losing by a score of 3-1 against Liverpool, drawing against Norwich away from home, draw against Brentford, a loss against Chelsea, a massive win against Watford away from home, and a draw against Burnley to end that run of 7 games. Again, Ben, scores for Crystal Palace and Patrick Vieira, and players that have stood out to you, in whether it's in good form or in bad form.
Yeah, they've had a bit of a shaky road. I mean, they certainly haven't looked the best, but I never saw anything that like stood out to me that was terribly bad. I'd say players such as Michael Olise and Zaha.
Oh yeah, Lisa, he's been in phenomenal form.
Yeah, and Zaha as well. Those guys are like perfect attackers. I have nothing bad to say about them. Their creativity and the way they move in front of the box is just phenomenal. And I think that, Crystal Palace might have a couple like problems in their defense and they might look shaky at sometimes, but I think that they'll get over this, in my opinion.
Definitely. I've been really impressed with them, and we've been seeing on Premier League Prime Time all season. We've been so impressed with the way Vieira has taken this team, and they've gone from this boring and pragmatic 4-4-2 under Roy Hodgson, which they played for years, and they're playing this free-flowing, pass-and-move football in this 4-3-3 formation, which none of us thought would suit Crystal Palace in the first place. But it ends up that it actually suits them really, really well in terms of different pieces brought in. And lastly, before we shift into Everton, Ben, thoughts on Conor Gallagher? I mean, this kid's just phenomenal again.
Yeah, definitely.
Huge part in these 7 games as he's been all season. Thoughts on Conor Gallagher? How good is this kid?
Excellent. I have nothing bad to say about him. He's a great player and he's fantastic.
100%.
I mean, he's probably he's probably not going to get it, but I think he is just a name to mention when considering team of the year at the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
Yeah, there haven't been many center mids this season that have been better than him, in my opinion.
100%, definitely. And Conor Gallagher, I wouldn't say he's more of an 8. I wouldn't say he's not a 6. He's on a 10. He's more of an 8. I agree. Box to box. But honestly, like for me, when I look at someone like Scott McTominay, right? Like Conor Gallagher is the player I want him to emulate. I want him to emulate what Conor Gallagher does. He's nowhere near Conor Gallagher. Absolutely nowhere near it in terms of just footballing intelligence, footballing IQ, footballing ability. But that's just the kind of player that he needs, that for me, he should be, like, he more or less should be copying in terms of just the way he plays, his movement, how he gets forward transitionally and all that. Next, we have Everton, and this is actually going to be kind of a weird one, to be honest with you. Of course, starting with the Leicester game that got postponed, Rafa Benitez's fate was sealed after losing by a score 2-1 to Norwich, sacked. Then Duncan Ferguson comes in. I'm not going to do a rating for Duncan Ferguson. He was in charge for one game, which they lost at home to Villa. And then Super Frank returns to management. Super Frank Lampard returns. And for the 4 games that he's had, losing to Newcastle by 3-1, a win against Leeds by 3-0, losing to Southampton by 2-0, and a loss against Manchester City at home by only 1-0. And there is no shame in that, in terms of, if you look at the way Everton played that game, phenomenal. So in terms of just the scores and ratings, we'll start off season rating for Everton under Benitez up until he's been sacked, Jose.
Well, really, really poor. I mean, they were really close to in the relegation zone. I don't even know if they weren't inside, but they were really, really close to the relegation zone for a lot of the last part of Benitez's reign. So I'd probably have to give them a D or an F. I mean, it's ridiculously bad considering they have a talented squad.
A very talented squad.
Talented squad that should really be doing a lot better. And I was really confused at how the Benitez one didn't work out. I have always rated him. I think he's a pretty good manager. I thought it would work out well for him.
To be honest with you, I think he's past it. I don't think.
Well, I mean, clearly, I think that now. I just thought when he came in that he was still a decent enough manager to get Everton like in the top table at least. But I was dead wrong with that one.
I never really saw the right fit in it, to be honest with you. I mean, the Everton fans are already just not really in league with it due to
I think
he was definitely way disconnected from the fans for the majority of his reign.
100%. And lastly, or into the second rating, Frank Lampard comes in. Scores for Frank Lampard over just this 4-game run, and I'd say other than Newcastle, they've been, and even against Southampton, they played fairly well. Other than that, you'd have to say it's been a decent start for Frank Lampard, to be honest with you. Although it has to be better than what it is now.
Well, I mean, what game did he start? He started in the Newcastle game.
Yeah.
And then he did all of the games. He did the Southampton game, the Villa game, not the Villa game. Okay, I see. So it's been all right. It was an impressive win against Leeds.
But it's
I mean, we can't really rate it that high, to be honest.
It's been all right. It hasn't been amazing, but he's done all right to start. But
I'd probably give him a C.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, in comparison to where Everton were before, it's definitely better.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
No, it's an improvement. It's an improvement.
100%. And lastly, players that have stood out to you on a positive or negative spectrum. But one player I will say right away, I am so happy that a certain midfielder that went on loan is showing why he's good enough to start in a certain Premier League side. When you look at their midfielders, he's showing that his quality. Donny van de Beek. You love to see it. I mean, the man got 90 minutes against Leeds, was by far the best player on the pitch. Even in the losses against Southampton and Manchester City, still one of the best players on the pitch by a million miles. Other than Donny van de Beek, or if you want, you can add more about Donny van de Beek, but anyone else that stood out to you for Everton, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I'm just gonna list the bad ones, to be honest, because there's quite a bit. I'm just gonna read off a bit of a list I have here. Michael Keane, Richarlison, Seamus Coleman, Yerry Mina, and Ben Godfrey have been god awful this season. I'm not gonna lie. 100%. And I mean, we're used to seeing decent enough performances from at least for most of them. So I think it's a bit strange that they've been so off this season. Michael
Keane reminds me of Maguire, to be honest with you. I mean, the man just can't.
It reminds me of him too. I agree.
But then again, I don't know if it became, which one would I rather have? I don't know. That'd be a pretty close contest. I don't know. I probably just would just stop watching football as a whole if it was between those two, to start. And And look, well, what are your thoughts on this Lampard appointment in general? Do you think he's the right man for Everton? Do you think he's the right man to take them forward? And just what are the overall differences that you see in just these first 4 games? I know it's a new manager bounce and take that.
I think if I'm like the owner of a club, if I'm the owner of a club and I'm looking at managers to sign, I'm not really looking at people like Lampard or Ollie, because I feel like
Ollie, anyone but Ollie.
No, because I mean I put Ollie and Lampard in similar pots because I think that they've done they've done similar jobs at their clubs. So I think that if I look at the two of them, I think I look at them and I say, well, they really got their jobs previously because they're ex-players, not because they have significant managerial achievements before that. So I think that like I don't know why I'd go for them, to be honest. Like because I think that there's so many like other experienced managers that you can go for other than people who just got the job based off of the fact that they're ex-players.
I mean, in terms of availability, I mean, maybe a Graham Potter, but he's there's no way he'd leave mid-season. I mean, there's Vitor Pereira is out there. I mean, in terms of just like the options, who was out there really to bring in, to be honest with you?
Well, I wouldn't look. A lot of managers coming from bigger clubs outside of England are interested in smaller jobs in England. Like you look at what's his name? Carlo Ancelotti came from Napoli to Everton. So I think that Everton could have lured someone from a Napoli, maybe like who's a Napoli manager right now?
Luciano Spalletti.
Yeah, well, obviously not him. He's doing really well, but I think that someone like that at a club like doing slightly well in Italy or in France or in somewhere like that, they could have lured to Everton over someone like Frank Lampard. I just think he's too inexperienced to get such a job like that.
He did a decent job in the Championship, but that doesn't really warrant you to get the top jobs.
Yeah.
He did a decent job. I think if Frank Lampard went to a lower Premier League side, I know Everton are quite low in the table, but just like if in more or less just like on paper rankings, just the paper version of the Premier League table in terms of where we would put teams, right? Yeah. I think if he went to someone like a Norwich or I thought Norwich would actually be a good place for him. I thought that would have been a better place for him. I thought Dean Smith would have actually been a better fit for Everton, a man with more experience. And look, I've always rated Dean Smith as a manager, not as someone amazing or world class. I've always thought he's definitely a decent Premier League manager, and he's doing decent well at Norwich. But lastly, before we shift into Leeds, what would you say is probably the biggest difference when you look at this Lampard version of Everton and you look at Rafa's version of Everton?
I think it feels more willing to take risks and go forward rather than being so compressed and when just wanting to sit back.
Definitely 100%. Next into Leeds, and they have just been absolutely dreadful. Although they did win against West Ham by a score of 3-2, then it's where it just all falls apart. Losing to Newcastle at home, drawing Aston Villa away from home by a score of 3-3, losing 3-0 to Everton, losing 4-2 to Manchester United, losing 6-0 to Liverpool, and losing 4-0 to Tottenham, which led, of course, to the shock, but also somewhat inevitable sacking of Marcelo Bielsa. And Andre, what would you give Marcelo Bielsa for this season, in addition to this run of games that they've been in? So like 2 separate scores.
Yeah, I think I still have a tremendous amount of respect for Bielsa, and I think he is a pioneer in our sport. But this season, I think Leeds have just looked very erratic from the start of the season. I think they're moving players around, trying to find solutions, but sometimes the greater solution is just solidity. Even in those few matches where I think that run of matches where it was United, Liverpool, and us and Tottenham in a row, there was a lot of players playing in new positions. I think they've tried James up front.
They've been playing with a striker. Yeah, they've been playing with Daniel James up front, and that sort of leads me into my next question. In addition to scores for Marcelo Bielsa and Leeds, 0-10, players that have stood out to you, which Daniel James has to be one of them.
Yeah, he is, but I think players like Jack Harrison have looked a bit quiet. I don't think he's been himself. I was also gonna say I think they've played Robin Koch in midfield. It's been very erratic from them, and I think Bielsa has not had a good season. I remember one of our other episodes, I said Leeds could be a contender for relegation for
Yeah,
next
you did.
season. I said that for next season. They're absolutely now a contender for this season. It happened even earlier than I'd anticipated. So Leeds I think they need structure. I think they really do need structure. I think they should have gone bigger in the transfer market. I said
They got
Wout Weghorst for Leeds would have been cool. I think it would have brought something out of both of them. But no, the Leeds just no structure right now. I think they've now fired Bielsa. They've brought in have they appointed March yet?
Yes, but right before Jesse Marsh, scores for Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa for this run of games.
Yeah, I think Leeds probably get a 1 or a 2 for their.
Yeah, definitely.
And
And
I think
of
Bielsa
course,
to 3.
that led into my next question about the imminent appointment, and which has now been announced and confirmed by the club, Jesse Marsh. Do you think he's the right fit for Leeds and to save them from relegation? Because for me, his style of play, it's very similar to Marcelo Bielsa's, except he has a bit of that gegenpress philosophy in terms of just when you look at his midfield, they work extremely hard. It's similar to Klopp's midfield in terms of just the function where they work hard to win the ball back and then they transition forward and all that. But do you think he's the right man for Leeds, or do you think no?
I mean, I think you look at Jesse Marsh's Red Bull Salzburg side, and they were very much an attacking team right on the front foot, developing play. I think it's too dissimilar to Bielsa. I think you're correct in that. In terms of surviving the drop, an attack-minded coach, we usually see teams go for a more pragmatic defensive style of play. But Leeds they've thrown. It seems like they're going to throw their eggs in this basket. I don't know if he's the right man to survive the drop, but he could be the right man to take Leeds going forward. However, Americans do not have a great record in this league. I will say that.
Let's not talk about our assistant coach, please,
All right.
because that will make me cry. And quickly, Ben, next over to you. We have Leicester. Their first 2 games against Norwich and Everton were postponed. Losing somehow by a score of 3-2 to Tottenham Hotspur. That was absolutely incredible. Just typical Brendan Rodgers, bottle job FC, back again. And they lost to a bottle jobs FC themselves, which is just surprising. Drawing Brighton at home, losing to Liverpool by 2-0, drawing West Ham at home 2-2, losing to Wolves on the road by a score of 2-1, and that game against Chelsea got postponed. Just really poor from Leicester, to be honest with you. It's not been anything.
No,
Scores for Leicester and Brendan Rodgers and players that have stood out negative and positive.
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem with Brendan Rodgers, even at his days in Liverpool, has always been consistency. And, there's just a constant lack of it. It's just, that's like Leicester are a really solid team. And it seems that every season there seems to be sort of like a drop in Leicester's performance throughout the season. And I think that's the biggest problem they're facing. As far as players that stand out to me, to be honest, Barnes, for example, is actually
he's in decent form.
Yeah, he's actually a great player. He's super good, and it seems like he can shoot from anywhere, to be honest, outside the box and whatever. And just their dip of form has been very disappointing for how good of a team they are. And I really hope they get back on form. It's just, I think they should be in there for Champions League, to be honest.
Really? And that's actually interesting. Oh, and I forgot, they actually played Burnley yesterday and they won by 2-0, which I think Harvey Barnes scored. And just another 2 players to add on, which players have stood out in one of the few positive ways, actually. James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans, those 2 have been in decent form. I mean, from my perspective, scores for Leicester and Brendan Rodgers before we move into the next side.
Probably 4.5, somewhere around there.
All right, fair enough. Next, we have Liverpool, and Liverpool have remained perfect, and they have won every single game. Wins against Brentford, Crystal Palace, Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, and Leeds. We're really not a difficult run of games. Scores for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, and players who have stood out to you, negative and positive.
Yeah, they haven't had a difficult run of games, but they've won every game, so you have to give them an A. They've done exactly what they were supposed to do. I think that they're honestly looking like the best team in the Premier League right now. I think that they're looking better than Man City, and I think that they fully recovered back to that form that we saw in 2019, 2020. I think that they're fully back. Everyone who was on form then is back on form now. I think and more. I think they have Jota now. They have obviously they have Luis Diaz who's going to come into form.
So impressive.
Yeah, he's been really
so good. He's an excellent player.
He, like when I look at Luis Diaz play, it looks like when I watched him and Robertson, it looked like that that he was like Sadio Mane in terms of the chemistry that they had. That they already knew how to play with each other well, in terms of just getting up and down the pitch, 1-2s, passing combinations, overlapping runs, all that. He seemed to just gel in immediately. I mean, it looked like he'd been playing with Liverpool for years. I mean, he's definitely going to be one for the future.
Yeah, I was watching him in the cup final, and he was. I can't remember the amount of times. There were so many times where I saw someone. Yeah, it was where I saw someone play him in and down the left, and he cuts in and takes a shot, or he takes a shot on his left foot.
Reece James had an absolute nightmare that game.
Yeah, he could not handle anything.
Petrified of him.
Yeah, it was
credit to him. Any other players that have stood out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Salah obviously has looked really, really impressive recently. Van Dijk looks fully back to form. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson's honestly looked even better than Trent Alexander-Arnold recently. And I'd probably leave it there.
I think there's one player that you're missing in terms of center backs. In terms of, and I know they have Van Dijk, but there's been a center back.
That's actually
Joel Matip. He's stood out more than Van Dijk this season. He's been.
Yeah, I'd say.
Did you see the goal he scored
excellent.
against? I forgot who. Oh wait, no, it was against Leeds. I think it was their second goal. Do you see that goal he scored against Leeds? He made that long bursting run from like halfway, and Salah played him in, and he just scored that one time finish. Like I was like, yo, Joel Matip is getting forward and scoring goals. Like, I mean, he's been really impressive for me.
Wasn't his goal ruled out against Chelsea in the last game, man?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, he had a goal ruled out against Chelsea.
Definitely. Yeah, it did. Into the next side, Manchester City, and this isn't like in terms when you look at the results, like it's not typical Man City. A win against Andre's favorite side and manager by a 0-0. A draw against Southampton away from home. 2-0 win against Brentford. A 4-0 win at Norwich. A 3-2 loss against Tottenham, which for me, honestly, that game was arguably the game of the season for me. That was probably the match of the season. And a win against Everton away from home, which, let's be real, Everton were absolutely robbed by VAR. But let's just be real. I know I'm the host and I'm supposed to be neutral, but come on now. I mean, as Frank Lampard said, his 3-year-old daughter could distinguish that's a handball. And I think anyone with a footballing brain.
Even the referee afterwards
he
came out and said that it was a handball.
Usually they get fined. Usually they get fined. They don't get an apology.
100%. Anyways, Andre scores for Manchester City and Pep and players that have stood out in whether it's positive form or in good form or if it's in bad form.
Yeah, this definitely isn't the City side that we're used to seeing. It almost seemed like they got so comfortable with winning every game that now that they almost look sluggish. To me, it looks like their standards have dropped. I think it's weird. I think it's felt like that small period where Bernardo Silva looked like the player of the season. As soon as De Bruyne came back into the midfield, it seemed like Bernardo had to tame himself a bit. His role changed in the team. So that midfield, the dynamic almost changed so much where their entire attacking play has looked different. It's looked sluggish to me. It's looked slow. It hasn't looked as energetic as we're used to seeing. You still I don't think there are any players that are like isolated that have been poor. I think you still look at Foden, Sterling, and they've still looked solid. Joao Cancelo has
One
dropped.
player that you named there, Raheem Sterling, he got Premier League Player of the Month. I would say that was a bit. I wouldn't say that it was the right choice, but like he was up there, and look, he was up there for a reason. Raheem Sterling has actually been in very good form for Manchester City. Not,
He's looked back to like his old numbers, the numbers he was getting a few seasons ago.
I mean, and I'll say this right now, and look, everyone knows I just hate Man City because of my allegiances to the red hot Manchester. But I've always said a player that I just have so much respect for and admire so much is Raheem Sterling. Not only what he's done for England, and you look what he's just done in the Premier League. I think he's the 10th all-time goal scorer now for Manchester City right now. And look, he's a remarkable player, and for me, he's showing why Jack Grealish should be nowhere near starting 11, to be honest with you. But a score for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, Andre.
Yeah, they've been average. I think I'd give
By their
them
standards.
5. Yeah,
Fair
they've
enough,
been
yeah.
5, yeah.
Definitely. Next, the part that I know Ben's been waiting for. The Red Hot from Manchester, the team which has been a thorn in my mental health and in Jose's mental health. Let's take a look at Manchester United's past games, their running games. All right, let's dive into it. Drawing at Aston Villa 2-2, winning a win at Brentford by 3-1, a win at home to West Ham by 1-0, a draw against Burnley, which ended 1-1, a draw at home against Southampton, a 2-0 win against a 10-man Brighton, a 4-2 win against Leeds. And I heard everyone saying Rangnick masterclass, Rangnick's at the wheel, before we go and play at home against Watford and we draw 0-0. Scores for Manchester United and Ralph Rangnick, and players that have stood out as in a positive way or in a negative way.
Yeah, I think I would give us an average, like a 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's generous.
yeah, I agree.
But
to be
anyway,
honest.
carry on.
We haven't lost.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's very true.
We haven't had that difficult opposition either, though. That's the thing. So I think that I think that Rangnick is not the problem at all. I think that he's been coaching well. I think that it's our problem is just our players' form right now is so poor. I think so many of our players have looked like unrecognizable in terms of like how they were last season or a few seasons ago to how they are now. You look at Rashford, you look at Shaw, you look at Maguire. It's just I don't know like what's going on with them. I don't know why they're not playing like they have been in previous seasons. I think if you look at bright sparks, you have Jadon Sancho. That's probably it.
Very good. And I said this back in December when we beat Villarreal by 2-0 in the Champions League in that game under Carrick. Just Jadon Sancho haters, just silence yourselves, please. Just stop with the agendas. Stop with the comparisons to Jack Grealish and Philip Coutinho. Yourself, please. Just stop. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. David De Gea all season.
yeah.
Of course.
I don't care what anyone says. He's been the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. If not for David De Gea, we would.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Probably
I don't think any goalkeeper's been better than him this year in the Premier League.
He's conceding more goals because of his world-class defense in front of him. That's why.
Yeah.
And Varane's been out more times than none. So, you're stuck with, our world-class Englishman worth 80 million pounds and the Iceman. And we all know what happens when you see those two together. Yeah. I'll just give my input. If I'm scoring Matchday and Rough Rangnick 3, I don't care if we didn't lose a game. A win against Leeds just means nothing to me. The Brentford game, we to be honest, should have lost. The Villa game should have lost. Last minute win against West Ham, we were poor that game. Burnley, the second half, dreadful. Southampton, okay, average. Brighton, we were rubbish in the first half, and then second half FC came back again. And Watford, we just couldn't break down Watford for our lives. And look, I think mainly in this run of games, I've been very critical of Ralph Rangnick. But especially highlighting the Watford game, I'll defend Rangnick 110%. Other than Matic and Fred, for me, he played the right players. I thought play Matic with Pogba and have Alenga and Jadon Sancho and Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo up front. But other than that, he did everything right. Although I would have said bring Sancho and Ryan on halftime, I would have brought Lingard on ahead of Rashford. But other than that, there's nothing really to criticize Rangnick for in that specific game. The players were just absolutely dreadful. And a player just in terms of just this run of games who I love the guy, but I don't want to see him being compared to Kevin De Bruyne. Bruno Fernandes. I mean, how many chances has this guy missed from like 6 yards out? It's infuriated me. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on Matchday before I waffle on an hour-long rant. Then over to Newcastle. Now, since Amanda Staveley and the new ownership has come in, they've been looking decent. And since they're new signings to come in, you look at they drawing Watford at home, a win against Leeds, a win against Everton, a win against Aston Villa, a draw against West Ham, and a win against Brentford. So they haven't lost a game. Scores for Newcastle and Eddie Howe.
I think Newcastle are looking really solid, but I also think that Newcastle are playing teams that aren't on the best of form. Like, for example, Leeds is, well, you know how Leeds are. And then also in the Brentford game, De Silva got a red card. And I think that, you know, after he got a red card, their team just fell apart. And, you know, Newcastle just absolutely wiped the floor with them. They 100% deserved to win. They were fantastic.
100%. Scores for Newcastle and Eddie Howe and players that have stood out to good or bad.
I'd give them probably 8 is a little bit generous, but I don't think a 7 is. I don't think a 7 is. A 7 is a little bit too low, in my opinion.
7 probably to average out.
Yeah, 7.8, somewhere around there.
Fair
Yeah. I just, in general, their entire attack just looked extremely solid.
For me, for players that have stood out, Kieran Trippier, it's unfortunate that he's injured now for the season. He looked amazing. He hit the ground running. Alan Saint-Maximin, looking all right. Who else? I mean, I have to say Chris Wood's done the job that he was brought in to do. Be a guy to hold up the ball, distribute it to the wingers, score, poachers goals. That's what he was brought in to do. So that's what I'd say for Newcastle. Next, into Norwich, Andre, over to you. A loss against West Ham, a win against Everton, a win against Watford, a draw against Crystal Palace, 4-0 loss to Man City, losing 3-1 to Liverpool, and a loss against Southampton. Andre, scores for Norwich and Dean Smith and players that have stood out to good or bad.
Hey, sorry, I was doing something. You said scores for Norwich, correct?
Yep.
Hold on, sorry. I had their notes pulled up. Yeah, okay. Let's go through Norwich. So 1 win in their last 5. Still dead last. But I still think Dean Smith has brought some degree of stability to the side. I think we still had that our American striker, what's his name? Josh Sargent is in there. That's a fun one to see. Yeah, they have players that are developing, but I think Norwich still average or below average. I'd probably give them a 4.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, they got something. Hopefully they can come back up in 2 years from the championship.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, Jose will know all too well about him. Of course, they still have the GOAT, Brandon Williams. Of course, you always got to point that out. Of course, Brandon Williams, just the GOAT himself. And Jose, actually, next to you, Southampton, a win against Brentford by 4-1, losing to Wolves, drawing Manchester City, and beating one of the best North London sides I've ever seen in my life by a score of 3-2, drawing Manchester United at Old Trafford, a win against Everton and a win against Norwich. Scores for Southampton and Ralph Hasenhüttl and players that stood out to positive and negative.
Yeah, they've picked up some really impressive results. I think that the draws against both Manchester clubs are impressive, and the win against Tottenham obviously really impressive.
Well, one of them's impressive. One of the draws against one of the
Well,
Manchester.
sure, well, sure, but I think that someone who's really gone under the radar this season and has been great all season is Tino Livramento for them.
100%.
I think that every time I see a win, or some good performance from Southampton, it's him as man of the match, or it's him as with an assist or popping up with a goal. I think he's really impressed me, and he's really young, and I think he's got a big future in the Premier League.
100%. I definitely agree with that. Pardon, what was the score you gave Southampton and Ralph Hasenhüttl?
Oh, I'll give them an 8 out of 10.
Definitely, 100%. Next, of course, we are on to Ballajol FC. They have been looking absolutely world class under Antonio Conte since in this run of games. Clearly, of course, beating Leicester City and Brandon Rodgers Ballajol FC by 3-2. Siebenberg won. What a turnaround! Of course, losing to Chelsea, surprise, by 2-0. Losses against Southampton and Wolves both at home. A win against Manchester City, a loss against Burnley away from home, and thumping Leeds at Ellen Road by a score of 4-0. Andre, scores for Tottenham and Antonio Conte, and players that have stood out to you, good or bad?
Look, I think there have been some really interesting differences since Conte has come in. I think back to the Mourinho era, and one thing that I felt like he did is that there was preparedness for match to match. Like, it felt like we were always preparing for the opposition that was ahead of us, truly. However, there was a lack of preparation. Our players weren't fit enough. The passing sometimes wasn't slick enough. And Conte, I feel like, is the opposite of that, where there's a great amount of preparation. The players are quite fit, but there's a lack of preparedness from team to team. I think the only game in which there was an actual head-on just counter, like trying to counter a team, was Man City. That was the only one where it was like, let's analyze our opposition and counter them and nullify their weaknesses. I think Tottenham have struggled to do that against every other side. And that's like my own small critique of Conte is like, we're not a team yet that can do that and get the consistency. We don't have the players yet. So I think there's got to be like a balance between just preparation and preparedness. So that, I think that's my one like big critique of Conte. If we're going individually, Ryan Sessegnon is coming to the team. He's looked pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Dejan Kulusevski is looking quality. Two goals already with the club. Harry Kane, we are seeing the best Harry Kane of the season for sure. I'm hoping he could carry it forward. I think Son has looked not himself, has not looked.
No, he hasn't.
I think, yeah, I'd say though for individually, those are the players that are notable. I think the defense has been pretty average, and I think the midfield has been average as well. Oh, well, Bentancur, I think, is already better than Thiago Alcantara and Saul and Rodri. So I think Bentancur will be amazing, and he will be world class in like 3 years.
I've always rated Rodrigo Bentancur. I think he's a decent player. He's always been, a good player, good promising young player at Juventus. Ratings for Tottenham and Antonio Conte in the stretch of games.
Yeah, I'd give it's been really disappointing. I'd probably give him like a 4.
100%. And before we move on to Watford, right? What were your thoughts on Conte's words and Conte's press conference after Burnley?
Yeah, there's always
and all of that. But I mean, what situation has this caused? And just what are your thoughts on this overall, disaster that he's? Is this just typical Antonio Conte that everyone more or less called from the start?
Yeah, I think I was kind of worried because those comments seemed very honest. They seemed very it seemed like very transparent. It seems like we were seeing his true feelings. But then I think Fabrizio Romano did a piece just on that press conference where he kind of went through everything Conte said and kind of explained it. And he just went on this thing about, it's like, Conte used to do this all the time in Italy. He hates losing, and when that happens, he gets very emotional. So he'll just say things that maybe he blows out of proportion, or the media can blow out of proportion. So I think a lot of those words were said in frustration, but that's not to say that there is some truth to it. I just think it's a bit of a hyperbolic truth. I think he's probably made things a little worse than they are, but I think there is some truth behind a lot of how Tottenham operates in what he said in his press conference. So I think it's not as bad as we think, but there is some underlying
100%. Yeah, definitely. Next into Watford, and of course that game's or Watford in the former manager Claudio Ranieri sacked after losing 3-0 at home to Norwich, and before that drawing at home to Watford. Roy Hodgson comes in and for the stretch of games, a draw against Burnley, a loss against West Ham, a loss against Brighton, a win against Aston Villa, a loss at home to Crystal Palace, and a draw against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Scores to Roy Hodgson and Watford, Ben, and players that have stood out to you, positive or negative.
I mean, to be honest, after picking up after Claudio Ranieri's sort of, I don't know, I guess you'd say bad sort of performance, I think that, they're not doing overly bad, but they're definitely just like not doing the best that they should be. And I think that's best noted in the game against Manchester United. I think that Manchester United was just constantly destroying them. It was kind of like a turkey shoot. Just Manchester United just could not score. And Watford, for some strange reason, decided to park the bus and just played all out defenses basically the entire game. And definitely they were terrible in that game. I think one player that stood out to me that did not play very good was their outside back, Ngakia. Their right back definitely did not have a good performance.
Definitely, yeah, I agree with that. And what score did you give Roy Hodgson and Watford for this run of games?
They haven't lost like almost all their games, so I wouldn't say they're like like a 2, but also they're not good enough for a 5 or a 4, so like 3.8 more or less.
All right, fair enough. Next, Andre on to West Ham, and they've dropped off just slightly, but not tremendously. A win against Norwich, a loss against Leeds, a loss against Leeds and Manchester United, a win against Watford, draws against Leicester and Newcastle, and a win at home against Wolves to finish off that run of games. Scores for West Ham and David Moyes, Andre, and players that have stood out to you, negative and positive.
I think this is probably at West Ham. Like this is probably their level. I think for the next few years we will see a West Ham side that's kind of operating at this level, trying to compete for some sort of European football. There is some competition, but they're certainly, I think they're better than the likes of Leicester right now. Maybe so. I think West Ham. I'd probably give them like a 6 or a 7. I think this is probably where they're at right now in their development as a side. I think that's what I have to say. I think this is West Ham. This is West Ham.
Any players that have stood out to you in this run of games?
Kurt Zuma, maybe. I'm kidding. That was. Is he still playing? Is he getting time?
Yeah, he is still playing.
He got man of the match the other day. I don't remember what game it was. I think it was a cup game.
Wow.
Other than Kurt Zuma, any other players that have stood out to you?
Jared Bowen's a genius. That guy is awesome.
Oh, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, Jared Bowen's really cool. Yeah, I'd go Bowen. Bowen's the GOAT. He's really good.
I don't think he's as good as Brendan Williams, so and I think Jose would agree with that. Yep. And Jose, actually, lastly, over to you. We have Wolves. They have been just beyond impressive. They've been very, very impressive. Wins against Southampton and Brentford, a loss against Arsenal at home. Wins against Tottenham and Leicester. Again, another loss against Arsenal at the Emirates and a loss against West Ham. Scores for Wolves and Bruno Lage, and players that have stood out to you in this run of games, negative and positive.
Yeah, they've been pretty great. I think that they've really impressed me this season a lot. They're really energetic, really hardworking, and I admire a lot about how they play. I think that a lot of their games are not won by individual performances, but by the team and by how hardworking they are and how they stop goals from coming in, and they defend their lead really well. So I think that I'd have to give them they have a few losses in there. Maybe I'll go 7.5, 8 for these recent games.
Fair enough.
And then for individual performers, there aren't many. Honestly, it's been a lot of a team game for them. But I'd probably stick out Raul Jimenez. I think he scored 2 vital goals in 2 different games. And then I'd also say Ruben Neves.
Of course, yeah, Ruben Neves has been he's been really good this, I'd say, for most of the season, to be honest with you. He's been very impressive. And lastly, before we end up the show, of course, we have our match day, match week 20 predictions and our mid-season updates and evaluations for our end of the season predictions. So more or less our updates for our predictions made back in August. But we'll start with match day 28. We'll just go around. Ben, starting with you. Leicester hosting Leeds. What are you saying for this game?
I mean, I think Leeds is still sort of in a bad place right now. So, and now that Leicester picked up that win against Burnley recently, I think they should win, basically.
You're going with the Leicester win?
Yeah.
All right. Jose, what about you?
I would agree.
Like, throw me.
Scores? Ben, Jose, scores for either of those games?
Yeah, I go 2-0 Leicester.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. 2-0.
All right. Andre, what about you?
Leicester to win.
Yeah, Leicester to win. Probably, I think it'll be somewhat of a landslide. I think I'll go like 3-1 maybe.
Of course, shout out to, I'm guessing, which is Michael in the background, obviously. And for me, I'll go Leicester 3, Leeds 1. Next, we have Burnley and Chelsea. For me, Chelsea 3, Burnley 0. As good as Burnley's been, Chelsea should just take care of business, to be honest with you. Good. And what about you? What are you saying?
There's been inconsistencies in Chelsea, so I'm gonna think.
Actually, I'll change 2 on Chelsea. Actually.
Yeah, I think either they tie 1-1 or Chelsea barely scraps a win. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. Jose, what about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say 2-1 Chelsea.
All right. Andre,
Yeah,
masterclass.
I think when I see like Burnley and Chelsea next to each other, I think of that one game where Southampton lost like 9-1 or something, or 9-0. Because I do think Burnley will just rip Chelsea apart. Truly, I think Ben Mee is a better player than Rudiger. I think Ben Mee will make Rudiger look like a little girl. I think Wout Weghorst is better than Lukaku and Chelsea's attacks. They're all bad. They're all bad.
That one, I could agree.
I'm not. I'll be realistic. I'll go like 5-0 Burnley. Yeah.
What? Oh my God.
Quick disclaimer: Premier League Prime Time does not disclaim the way that Andre the way Andre involved genders in the context I grew in. Premier League Prime Time does not condone that. Andre is really going for a cheeky Tuchel masterclass. I can see it'll be a Tuchel masterclass, and then Tuchel at the end of the season when Conte leaves is going to sign for Tottenham, and he'll say, "I took this job from a number 1 fan, Andre." Next, of course, we have Aston Villa hosting Southampton. Ooh, for me, this is gonna be an interesting one. But for me, when I look at Villa, they're dropping off a bit. I mean, I'll go for 1-1 personally. But Ben, what about you? What are you saying?
Yeah, I have to agree with the 1-1.
All right. Jose, what about you?
I think it could go either way. Villa have been inconsistent. I'd probably back Southampton on their recent form. I'd go with a 1-0 Southampton win.
Okay. Andre, what about you?
Yeah, I think Hasenhüttl Gerrard will be an interesting battle. I think I'm going to edge it out to Southampton, though. I think I'll go 2-1, maybe 1-0. Yeah.
Fair enough. Next, Norwich against Branford. I think this game's actually going to be quite an interesting game. But I will say, this is a difficult one. I'll say Brentford will just get over the line. I think it will be Brentford 1, Norwich no. It could also very easily be 1-1. It could be either one of those. Ben, what are you saying for this game?
Personally, I think the other way. I think Norwich is going to barely scrap a win 1-0. I just don't think Brentford is very convincing right now.
Fair enough. Jose, what about you?
I'm gonna go 2-0 Brentford.
Okay. Andre.
Yeah, battle at the bottom. It is going to be interesting. I'll go 1-1.
Fair enough. Next, Newcastle hosting Brighton, and Newcastle have been in good form. Brighton have not been in good form. I think it will be Newcastle 2, Brighton 1. to be honest with you. They've been in good form, Newcastle. Ben, predictions?
Yeah, I'd say 2-1 or 2-0. Going with Newcastle.
Fair enough. Jose?
I think as much as Newcastle are in way better form than Brighton right now, I think that Brighton are going to be motivated to try to start fighting back and getting back into their groove. I think it'll be a draw. It'll be 1-1, 0-0.
Fair enough. And lastly, Andre, over to you.
Yeah, I'll go 1-0 Newcastle. I'll edge it out to Newcastle.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Next, Wolves against Crystal Palace. Two teams that have been impressive all season, but for me, I'll go Wolves 3, Crystal Palace 1. Wolves for me, I think will take it. Ben, what are you saying?
I think Crystal Palace will pull up more of a fight, so I think I'm going to say Wolves 2, Crystal Palace 1.
Okay. Jose, what about you?
I'd go 2-0 Wolves.
Andre,
Yeah, I'll go Wolves.
score?
I'll go 2-0. Jose's pretty good predictions. I'll go 2-0 too.
All right. Next, Liverpool hosting West Ham. Another interesting game. Liverpool for me are just the hottest team in the Premier League at the moment. For me, I'll go Liverpool 3, West Ham 1. Ben, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think Liverpool are by far just the best. Their defense also looks solid, so I'm just going to say 3-0.
Okay. Jose, what are you saying?
I'd agree with you, Davis.
All right. And Andre,
Sorry, what was the game?
Liverpool, West Ham.
Ooh, Liverpool. Let's go 3-0.
All right, fair enough. Next, Watford against Andre's beloved Arsenal. I will go. This should be very straightforward. I'll go Arsenal 4, Watford 1. Ben, thoughts, predictions?
Yeah, 3-0.
All right.
Basic.
All right. Jose, what are you saying?
2-0 Arsenal.
All right. And Andre.
I think my heart tells me that the cycling goalkeeper, Ben Foster, will do a bicycle kick into the net at the last minute and go 1-0.
No, my
But
heart
I'm
also
not-
saying that. Why?
Cyclist goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think he will do a bicycle, the cyclist goalkeeper. But no, I think Arsenal will. This will be pretty straightforward for them. I think it'll be really good. I think they'll get the 3 points. Maybe like a 2-0.
Fair enough. Next, Manchester City against Manchester United. And as much as my head is telling me it's going to be a rout, in these sort of games, it's actually when the chips are down, it's when Manchester United somehow just turns up out of nowhere. I'm not saying we're going to get any points or result at the Etihad, but usually when you see over the years, when you see Manchester United in a horrendous run of form and they have a big opposition or a big game, oftentimes you'll see them turn up. So, but for me, I think Manchester City will take mercy on us. I think it will be City 3, Manchester United 1. Ben, what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United are kind of unpredictable, like you said. In this time, it's either City 3, Manchester United 0, or Manchester United barely scraped the win with 1-0.
100%. Jose, what are you saying? Will Manchester be red or blue? And what is the score?
I don't know. I'm nervous for it. I'm gonna be at the game, which is gonna be kind of crazy. So I'm nervous and excited at the same time. I think I'm gonna have to predict a City win. Although I do see a chance for us because we sometimes play well in these random games against Man City.
Yeah,
but I'd go 2-0, 2-1 Man City.
Nope, that's fair enough. And Andre, lastly, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think I'm just ready for Liverpool to overtake City, but I don't think it'll happen yet. I think they will get somewhat their groove back. I think they'll get the win in this one. Unfortunately, I think Manchester will be bluer than your testes, Davis. I'm sorry.
And what's the score? What's the score going to be of that game?
It'll be a close game. I'll go 2-1.
Fair enough. And last fixture before we get on to our midseason update to the end predictions, which is the last part of our show. Tottenham against Everton. For me, I'm going to go Everton 2, Tottenham 1. They've been so unconvincing as of recent. And if Tottenham lose, I will not be surprised. But if they win, I know Andre will 100% be, he'll probably come all the way up here. Slow and just tear me a new one. But yeah, Everton 2, Tottenham 1. For that reason. Ben, thoughts on this game?
I think that after, the whole Conte getting pissed about blah, 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 I think that, Tottenham are going to be more motivated, and I see them winning like 2-0, to be honest.
Actually, no, I'll go with the draw. Because Everton and Ben, I think they've been looking decent. They won't lose. I think it'll be a draw, in my honest opinion. Jose, what are you saying?
I'd agree with Ben.
All right, fair enough. And Andre, what are you saying for your Tottenham Hotspur?
Yeah, I think we'll win the game. I'll go 2-1 to Tottenham and Dele Alli to join in on our celebrations.
Well, who knows? That could happen. And lastly, quick fire for our mid-season update to our end of season predictions. Who do you think is going to be next on the sack list for managers? Ben, we'll start with you.
Who will be on the sack list? Oh, that's a tough one. Gotta say, yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, I don't see anyone being sacked as of right now, but maybe if Watford doesn't continue this form.
That's true.
Or if Leeds doesn't get back up to the way they were, I also see.
I don't think Jesse Marsh will go.
Yeah.
Been after him for a while, but you're saying Roy Hodgson maybe.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Fair enough. Jose, what about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Watford manager is always the safe bet, isn't he? So I think it's.
I predicted that at the beginning of the season.
yeah.
Noviola predicted Vieira.
I mean, I'm looking at the table right now. All the teams at the bottom have recently sacked their managers, I think. So I think it'll be. I mean, maybe except for like Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank is still there. So obviously Sean Dykes is still there. I don't think either of them.
Andre, what about you?
Yeah, I agreed completely with you too. I think that's true. I think the Watford thing is true.
100% for me. It could very well be Roy Hodgson at the end of the season when Watford go down, because they're let's be real, they're not staying up. They're definitely going to go down. But to be honest, I think if Leicester finish in a really bad place, I think Brendan Rodgers could be on the chopping block potentially. Next we have, is it going to be Liverpool or Man City for the Premier League winners? Who will win the league at the end of the season?
I say Liverpool.
All right, Ben.
I mean, I'm a little biased towards Liverpool, but if Man City keep up this sort of like,
I agree.
I've already won an attitude, and they're still inconsistent, I think Liverpool will overtake them.
100%. I fully agree with that. For me, I'll still stick with Manchester City right now, but if they continue the way they're going, Liverpool will definitely overtake them. Andre.
I think domestic leagues are the only form of football competition where the winner, the title winner, is the rightful winner. Like, that is the total meritocracy. If you're winning the league, you were the best over the entire season period. That is the only one. Tournaments, it can be flimsy, but leagues are the one where it's like the best team in the country will win. I think that's been Liverpool. I think Liverpool won the title.
100%. Who will finish third and fourth? Because everyone knows who will finish first and second. Third and fourth. Just predictions. Ben.
Gotta say Chelsea and Arsenal.
All right. Jose.
I would also say Chelsea and Arsenal, and I think it's actually kind of flimsy. So I think Arsenal could actually finish third.
Fair enough. Andre.
I'll go Chelsea and like Burnley, maybe. That'd be cool.
No. Actually, who's your bet for fourth?
I don't know. It is tough. If Arsenal keep going the way they are, then yeah, I think they will get it.
Yeah, I agree. It will be Chelsea and Arsenal, in my honest opinion.
Last episode we said it'd be Tottenham, so it's like these like that those like
the top four. Yeah, it could switch every week.
I mean, United's still in it. I think.
Yeah, we're still in it.
Mathematically, we're still in it, but trust me, we'll probably be playing in Thursday nights by the end of the season. Who will go down? I think for all of us, Norwich and Watford are on that list. Who's the third team to go down?
Leeds for me.
Okay. Ben, Andre.
Yeah, Leeds or Everton.
Andre?
I'll go Leeds.
I'll go Leeds as well. Golden Boot winner by the end of the season. For me, it's one man. It's gonna be Mohamed Salah by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Who are you lot saying? Ben,
Easy.
Andre?
Yeah, Salah without a doubt, to be honest.
Or Andre, are you still saying Harry Kane?
No, it'll be Salah. I'm not delusional, Davis.
Player of the season. Who do you think will win the player of the season?
Salah.
Yeah,
Salah. Yeah.
Salah.
But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it to De Bruyne or something, or Ruben Diaz, because the Premier League guy just does that all the time.
No, Ruben. If Man City loses the league, I don't think Ruben Diaz will win.
I generally wouldn't be surprised if they gave it to like Kevin De Bruyne or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised.
Or like Jack Grealish. That'd be awesome.
Jose, surely it's got to be Salah for players.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Salah. I would just give a shout to Bernardo, and then I'd give a shout to Trent Alexander-Arnold as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would
Fantastic.
definitely. And you know what? You want to who I'd also give a shout to? Someone could say that I'm a delusional, but I give a shout to Diogo Jota, man. I give a shout to Diogo Jota.
Yeah, he's been great.
I can see that.
100%. And lastly, before we end the show, who's going to be the young player of the season? Daniel, starting with you.
Can Trent still win?
No.
No.
When I'm saying
I
young
mean-
players, I'm saying like 20 and under.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I don't see anyone that's like out of this world. I mean, it all seems very close.
For me, it's between 4 players. And
I have.
Can we hear options? Let's hear options.
I mean, I have one that I think is honestly. I'm gonna say the guy I was saying earlier, Tino Livramento. I think he's been. I just think there's been so many results for Southampton that he's carried them.
that's a pretty interesting thought.
well.
I mean, he wasn't on my 4, but in terms of who I think it will be between Conor
Sancho.
Conor Gallagher will probably win it. I think.
Gallagher, Conor Gallagher, Bukayo Saka, Emil Smith Rowe, and Phil Foden. He'll probably be between those 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think Livramento has been honestly more consistent than almost all of them. I said maybe except for Gallagher, I think he's been more consistent than all of them.
100%. I mean, for me, I narrow it down to Gallagher, Smith Rowe, and Saka. Conor Gallagher's been playing in a team that's isn't the most amazing. Phil Foden's surrounded by world-class players around.
Yeah, I changed my opinion. Smith Rowe. I forgot about him. He's excellent.
For me, it could
World
very well go to
class.
Saka. It could very well go to Smith Rowe. It could very well go to Conor Gallagher, and any one of those 3. And Andre, last but not least, over to you.
How old is Gallagher?
I think he's 23. Is he?
Oh, he's 23.
Well, let me check right now.
Because if he's 23, then his name is out. Because we're saying like 20 and under. If that is the case, I don't know.
What's
No,
the
he's 22. He's 22.
I'd still say he's out of the case. For me, it's 20 and under. I'll say 20 and under for the
That's
young
fine. I
players.
think Tino Livramento is 19 or 20.
Fair enough.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. Wait, so yeah, like what's the cap to be nominated for Young Player of the Year? Like what's the age cap?
I mean, then again, a few seasons ago,
I think 23 is.
Martial was nominated like a season ago or something like that for Young Player of the Year.
So I think it is 23.
Yeah, it
I'm
is
not
23.
sure.
But when I think of young players, I think of like 20
Yeah.
and under or young players. For me, it's between Saka and Smith Rowe for going by just.
It's 21 or under now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mhm.
I'll go Smith Rowe or Saka, one of them. And
I think Foden will get it because they always award it to the wrong choice, like to whoever should have gotten it the season before. Usually, I don't even know. I'll go Foden to win it.
100%. And that wraps up season 2, episode 8. Thank you for watching this. If you've enjoyed this episode of Premier League Primetime, smash like on the video, comment down below. What are your thoughts on just everything mentioned in this episode? And wherever you're watching this in the world, have a great day or evening.